The powers that be all over the world understand that if they want to implement their policies, their way of life, the U.S. can no longer be an impediment. And how do you do that? You collapse the U.S. It's obviously a plan to torpedo the United States because the policies that they were putting in place all along have been too stupid to not be the actual plan.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the Miles Franklin Weekly Specials for June 24th through July 1st, 2024, while supplies last. First, we feature Ital Preziosi Silver Kilo Bars at just $1.79 over spot per ounce. We also have a highly limited supply of 1/10-ounce Platinum Britannia at $59 over melt. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.
Welcome back to Liberty and Finance. We're always glad to have this widely followed returning guest, Bill Holter, the founder of BillHolter.com, and also an experienced manager from Wall Street and a bullion dealer and student of all the markets and analyst of all the markets, is here with us this Thursday, June 27th, 2024. Bill, thanks for coming back on Liberty and Finance.
Good to be back, Dunnigan.
As always, before your arrival here, we have a plethora of questions that have been submitted, and we're going to get to those in just a few minutes. So thank you, viewers, for submitting those questions, and thank you also, viewers, for pushing us over the 100,000 subscriber limit on YouTube. That's awesome. They sent us this plaque to commemorate that, and we're grateful for everyone. If you haven't subscribed, for goodness sakes, click the subscribe button and let's keep going on that. But Bill, our viewers look to you for experienced judgment on what's going on in many arenas, including geopolitically and in the metals markets and the financial markets. Right now, they're wondering, a lot of people who are calling us are wondering why we're seeing such a pause in the momentum that had started in late second quarter in gold and silver. Your observations of that, why gold and silver seem to be taking a break?
Yeah, before I get to that question, I just want to say they gave you a plaque probably right before they take you down for saying something not correct, not politically correct. Anyway, as far as the metals are concerned, they broke out. I put an article out on May 11th. Not an article, basically. I put it up on my website. I showed some charts and said that it is likely that gold would go to new highs, silver would break over $30. And that did happen. We got up to about $32.50 on silver. We got to $24.50 on gold. They were both severely overbought, and were overbought for a fair amount of time. So those gains were naturally going to be digested. And of course, you've got the powers that be that don't want higher gold, don't want higher silver prices because they're direct competition to fiat. I think it was last Friday. There was basically the amount of silver that's mined in a year's time, that was equal to the amount of trading that was done on COMEX on Friday. So, I mean, they smashed this with paper again. I did put an article up, I believe it was Sunday or Monday, with the same charts. We're definitely no longer overbought. We're closer to oversold than overbought. Silver, well, first we'll start with gold. Gold has pulled back to this 2280, 2300 level. So we've had a pullback there. Silver has pulled back. I think it got down as low as 2875, 2880, something like that. And on the chart that I showed, there's definitely support at the 2850, 29 level. And there's a moving average that's right here at 29. And if you look at what I talked about in the first article, the MACD, the moving average convergence divergence, has declined, and at this point, fairly close to forming another hook to turning to the upside. So silver pulling back to 29 is absolutely where you should have thought that it would pull back. I mean, nothing goes straight up. Nothing will go straight up until we have a revaluation. Then it'll be like a light switch, and poof, you'll have new prices that are totally unrecognizable. On this move, on the next move higher, and I think the next move higher, you could see it beginning immediately. I think we're in the bottoming. We're digging on that $29 level as we speak. I think this is going to bring us probably to the 34 to 37 level. We'll be overbought, and you'll see another pullback. And then I believe that 32.50, the previous high, or 32 range, will again be the support. So this is it's totally natural. Anybody who was disappointed that gold or silver didn't keep going, once it hit 32.50, you don't understand how markets, normal markets work. And these are not normal markets. But when you get as severely overbought as we were, you're going to get a pullback, and we have had that.
It's interesting because people who've been around any market for a while know that does happen. And I had several fairly experienced clients who had been waiting for a significant pullback in the metals to make another entry point. They were caught off guard by the move up in late second quarter, and they said, well, is there going to be another pullback? And we said, my answer is there's always going to be a pullback. The thing that's hard to know is from what level and to what level, because we can certainly, as you point out, there will certainly come a day when things move far enough that so-called pullbacks that will happen won't be to levels that would be attractive in their old way of thinking. So it's there's a lot less hair pulling going on by those who are just methodically making regular purchases and cost averaging in, rather than those that are trying to time bottoms and tops. But I have to give you credit, because we even talked about your communication that you had sent out prior to that breakout about everything seeming lined up for the breakout in both gold and silver, and you called it spot on to within a day or so of when things really got moving in late second quarter. We've got another question here from a viewer, and I think there might be some confusion here that we should dispel about the difference between the clad coins, dimes, quarters, half dollars that people have in their pockets versus paper dollars, and the distinction between all of those having no intrinsic value versus silver coins, for example, having intrinsic value, or old gold coins. Omega Woman 42 says, this could come at a very important time, Bill. In the repricing of U.S. currency, what happens to the coinage? Will it matter that the Fed is responsible for the paper and the Treasury provides us with the coinage? I haven't heard any of the opinion makers talk about this, probably because it would cause a run on the coins? ?
Yeah, current coinage is it's worthless, basically. I mean, yeah, nickel's got value, and nickel might be a nickel. I don't even know where it is now, but it might be worth 6 or 7 cents. Who knows? But who cares? What's going to have value when all this is said and done is not going to be dollars. It's not going to be current coinage. It's going to be what's real, what's inside the coin. And pre-1964 dimes and quarters are 90% silver. And that's what they're valued at, is the silver value. So, I mean, don't get caught up in worrying about, quote, nickels or dimes, current nickels or dimes, because that's what they are. They're nothings. I mean, you could have $1,000 worth of nickels or dimes, and it might be, it might, in the terms of nickels, because of the nickel that's in there, like I said, it might be worth 6 or 7 cents. So, but I mean, look at a dime. A dime is worth $2 or a little more than $2 at this point, 1964. So, your true store of value and the way things will be bartered when the system goes down, the way you're going to pay a farmer is going to be dimes and quarters pre-1964 and earlier.
Yeah, it's one of the most confusing topics to come up when talking with newbies who have not yet gotten their arms around the difference between fiat currency and real money, gold and silver. When they say, why do I have to pay $2 or more than $2 for a dime? And once they grasp that the dime hasn't changed, it still can buy the same amount of goods that it could buy back in the 1960s, the 1950s, or whatever, then they start to realize, oh my gosh, that we've all been brainwashed to think about the dollar as a standard, whereas it's not. It's absolutely not. Where the silver is the standard. There's a question here I wanted to get to. One moment. And Selected Silvershire 7208 says, I have money in a small local community bank with only a few branches. I don't think they invest in commercial real estate. Are these small banks safer than regional banks? We're located in a recession-proof part of the country, the DMV. So that's the DC, Maryland, Virginia quadrant around DC.
I would say that it pretty much doesn't matter. You should only keep in a bank, what your bills are going to be for the next 6 months to a year. Even if your bank doesn't fail, you're going to be left with dollars that are going to be devalued in a drastic manner. But my thought process is the banks as a whole are going to collapse. There's not going to be anything standing. I guess the best way to say it is, okay, so they don't invest in real estate, but there's been a global run out of U.S. treasuries. Your bank definitely holds U.S. treasuries. So, now they've had their balance sheet devalued. Is your bank going to survive if the treasury doesn't?
Yeah, that's one of the things is when you talk about systemic risk, and I remember when we interviewed Daniela Martino Booth about this so a few years ago, she talked about systemic risk is so different from individual counterparty risk that you absolutely see it when you recognize it when you see it, because it's just sweeping across the system, and there's no place to hide for any institution that's tied into the system. We've got.
Hey, Dunnigan, I'm going to go off topic here just a little bit, because I've gotten a bunch of emails in the last 30 to 60 days, people talking about the Iraqi dinar and the Vietnamese dong. They're going to be revalued, and the white hats are in charge, and Trump is still in control of the military. I just want to point out, in my opinion, that's all bullshit. I mean, that is all pie in the sky. It's hope. It's hopium. If Trump was still head of the military, we wouldn't have had 10 million illegals or more cross the border. And as far as these revaluations people are talking about, do you really think that Iraq or Vietnam or any country is going to actually make a bunch of speculators wealthy at their expense? I mean, that's it's non-logic. So I just wanted to throw that in there, because I've gotten a bunch of those questions, comments. I've had people, be very disrespectful, telling me I'm an idiot because I don't believe that. I don't believe it.
This one's related. Cletus Smith 6652 says, do you see all the banks collapsing in a domino effect at the same time, or do you think some banks or nations will survive intact?
In the first go around, yeah, you're probably going to see 5 or 10 big banks that are supported by the Treasury, and they're probably going to make it. And that's their goal. Their goal is to foist the CBDC, central bank digital currency, on us, so that they can watch, see, and even control everything that we do financially. They can see if you buy a stick of bubble gum. They can watch this interview and shut your account and shut my account off. So yeah, they are definitely going to try to save the big banks, and it makes sense from the standpoint of, if they're going to come out with a central bank digital currency, is it easier to do it with 10,000 different banks or 10 different banks? With 10 different banks, it's way easier to coordinate. And, they can use cover of, well, the system collapsed, but we still have these banks, your money's safe, blah, blah, blah. And then they come up with the CBDC.
In addition to banks being part of a collapse, people are concerned about brokerages as well. You have direct experience working as a brokerage manager in the past. There's a question here from Charles Worth, G2684. Given that for stock investments, we are only beneficial owners and not actual owners of the stock shares themselves. If I sold all my stocks but kept the proceeds in my account at the brokerage as cash, could that money then still be taken from my account in the event of a market crash? Can that be used as collateral by the brokerage?
Yeah, absolutely. Anything that your broker holds is on their balance sheet. And that's, go back, read The Great Taking. Understand that these laws are actually in place. This is not speculation. The laws have been put in place all over the world. And when these institutions go down, you don't actually, it's not a deposit at the bank. The stocks in a broker are not actually yours. They're on the bank's balance sheet, and they will bail your capital in to try to save themselves.
We'll put a link to the book, The Great Taking. It's free PDF in the description of this video. And basically, Bill, you've talked to us about this before, that it documents the progression over the past several decades of actual laws being quietly changed, not only in the US, but all around the world, that transfer the actual ownership of stock. In other words, the portion of the company that you own is not really yours. It belongs to a holding company, and it's indirect, and you're a beneficial party and all this sort of thing. But it basically severs between a link between you and the actual ownership. Did you have more to add?
Let me put something out there, and this may help some people to understand why or how exactly this scam works. So you go to your broker and you deposit $100,000, $1 million, $10 million, whatever, and you do a bunch of trades, and every trade costs you $7.95. Do you really believe that a business model that charges customers to trade $1 million worth of stock and the commission is $7.95 is actually a business model? I mean, these companies have huge skyscrapers. They got private jets. The upper echelon drive around in Lamborghinis. How do they do that? On $7.95 per trade. It's an impossibility. The way they do that is you bring your $1 million in, you buy a bunch of stocks, and before the end of the day, those stocks are already lent out. That's how they make their money. They lend them out to short sellers. They lend them out to be used as collateral. And if they're lent out, are they yours? I mean, can you understand that concept that if your shares are lent and someone else has control of those, and all of a sudden the music stops, are those shares yours? Are they the brokers, or are they who the shares got lent to? The only thing I can tell you is they're not yours.
And I'll follow up with a reminder for those, please be patient if you've heard me say this before, but for those who haven't, my wife and I, after the .com collapse, decided we didn't want to get burnt again. We sold all of our stocks at our brokerage. We put everything into a cash equivalent account at the brokerage, and it was FDIC insured. It was earning like less than 0.25% interest. And we asked the brokerage firm, what can we do to get a little bit more yield? And they said, we got a money market account. You can do that. Great. And so we put in the money market account, and we're getting 2% that way. And then after the 2008 Lehman Brothers collapse, we were told, we got this letter from our brokerage saying, until further notice, you won't have access to your funds. And we called them up and said, hey, we weren't involved in any stocks or anything. We were just in a money market. They said, well, your money market on the backside was invested in Lehman Brothers, and you're collaterally damaged here, and until further notice, we won't get your funds back. And eventually, we got little shreds back. And every year, they call me up and say, "Hey, we noticed you haven't been doing many stock trades recently. Is there anything we can do for you?" And I said, "Yeah, give me my money back." And they never got all of it back. So it's not your money if they're lending it out on the backside to speculating.
Yeah, and the way to hold cash is to do Treasury Direct. And I think you can do that with as little as $10,000. At least it used to be that. Maybe it's $50,000. I don't know. But if you do Treasury Direct, you have no counterparty between you and the Treasury. So whether you get your money back depends on whether the Treasury stands or falls.
We'll get to that in a few minutes. There's this question, meanwhile, about people who are stacking physical precious metals. Julie G5718 asks, I've been accumulating junk silver and silver American Eagles. So far, so good. I need to get some gold to be able to hold my purchasing power since I can't get my hands on my retirement funds locked up in the system. Do I start with 1 ounce American Eagles, 1 ounce bars, half ounce or smaller gold coins and bars?
That's mint lineage coin. If there is a confiscation of gold, it won't be impossible, but it'll be very difficult to confiscate Eagles because Eagles do not circulate as currency. They don't circulate as coin. Essentially, you are buying them from the U.S. Mint. The U.S. Mint produces the gold Eagles, and when they get paid, they're making a profit. So can they really sell you an Eagle today and then next week come back and say, but you have to sell them back to us? There'd be lawsuits forever and ever on that. Now, could they say gold is illegal? You got to turn your bars in. You got to turn your generic coins in. You got to turn your Maple Leafs in, your Krugerrands, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, that could be done with a stroke of a pen. And there's really, because the Supreme Court never even really ruled on it back in 1933, that could be done easily. But taking Eagles, that would be very difficult. Going one step further on that person's question, if you're stacking silver and you understand the reason that you want to be heavier in silver, much, much heavier in silver now, is because of the ratio. At 80 to 1, man's ratio is 80 to 1. It takes 80 ounces of silver to buy 1 ounce of gold. Comes out of the ground at 10 to 1. Man discounted it to 16 to 1 for hundreds of years simply because of the transport costs and logistics. So silver was discounted from the natural ratio of 10 to 1. But 80 to 1 is stupid. If it comes down to 40 to 1, what that means basically is that it has outperformed gold 2 to 1. So if you think that gold, and you think rightly that gold is going to hold its purchasing power for you, silver is going to even do better than that.
You're talking about the gold-silver ratio. There are a couple of questions here. You've already touched on one of them. One says, will the gold-silver ratio come down anytime soon? You said if it does. Secondly, will the gold-silver ratio ever return to, quote, normal? And is it even relevant at this point? So your point is that it's relevant if you care about how much gold equivalent your holdings are worth in silver. Can you elaborate on that any further for those who still need further clarification?
Yeah, it absolutely matters. An 80 to 1 silver to gold ratio, what that's saying is that silver is grossly undervalued to gold. So silver is a steal. And if I said if, I should have said when, because ultimately the paper markets are going to break, and gold and silver and other commodities are not going to be controlled by paper markets. They're going to be controlled by cash markets. So yeah, that ratio will come down. Where it comes down to, I don't know. Does it come down to 40 to 1 and that's it? Does it come down to 30? Does it come down to 20? You've got some people out there like Big Swear talking about silver is going to go 1 to 1. Silver is going to be more valuable than gold. And I don't see that in any possibility, in any way, shape, or form. There's no way that's going to happen. But I do know where things are right now. Silver is grossly undervalued to gold and a much better purchase. In my opinion, silver is the cheapest asset on the planet.
Another thing to add to what you just said, we just interviewed Ed Steer yesterday, who showed a chart showing the amount of short that physical silver is on the COMEX versus any other of the commodities on the COMEX, and it is the most shorted commodity on the metals exchange. So it'll be interesting to see what the result of unwinding that short would do to as far as correcting this aberration, this imbalance in the gold silver ratio. We have a question here from Bill M from Florida who says, Bill, please talk about which, if any, states appear safer to live in and or store metals. Do state legal tender laws even matter at this point?
I don't really think that state legal tender laws matter at this point, but it's a good start. It's a move in the right direction. As far as storage is concerned, in my opinion, the best state to store in is North Dakota because it's the only state in the country that is not part of the Federal Reserve System. They have their own state banking system. So you could never have a federal agent walk in and say, tell us who your customers are and what you're storing. Even though it's a vault, and it's a non-bank vault, federal agents don't have any right to set foot in North Dakota.
In addition to the physical precious metals, some people are watching the undervalued nature of the gold and silver mining stocks in particular. Chiska22 says, I would love to know Bill's top gold and silver stocks.
I'm no longer licensed. I was licensed for 23 years, or actually longer than that because I was a registered investment advisor. So I do not talk about individual issues. Sorry.
All right, fair enough. I guess I can just add that to those who want to listen to what Rick Rule has to say in his due diligence on companies, you can go to the link in the description of this video, and you'll see all the exhibitors he has invited to the conference next month in Boca Raton, Florida. And that's a pretty good clue on somebody who's been studying these a long time, who has been trying to find the needles in the haystack as far as which are the best companies out there. Here's one specifically up your alley, Bill. Bill Gibb 1074 asks, I've read your articles that say Mexico is running out of silver and that Mexico's new president is very anti-mining. Why hasn't this reverberated much more strongly through the markets?
My guess is that you've got paper suppression. There's all kinds of areas where things don't reverberate through the markets. There's all kinds of news that's come out where markets are really, not affected. If you go back to, I would have thought that there would have been a bigger move than we've already had in gold and silver, and a move down, certainly a move down versus other fiat currencies in the dollar. After, I guess it was October, November of last year, when they said that they were going to sequester the 300 billion of Russian reserves. And I would have thought 2 weeks ago that when they first started talking about using 50 billion of the Russian reserves as collateral for a Ukrainian loan, I would have thought that you would have seen much more market movement. And I would have thought that you would have seen on the USDX a drop versus foreign currencies, but you didn't see that.
So your thoughts there are that people aren't paying attention, or that there are counterparties who are paying a lot of attention, the plunge protection team and whoever that's got potentially infinitely deep pockets to buoy up both the dollar and the treasury bonds?
Probably both.
All right. Now, as long as we're talking the global picture, this question from MKP Stacking 6485, will gold and silver be revalued higher by the BRICS nations bypassing the COMEX and London exchanges?
I think you're already starting to see that. That's why Shanghai prices are $30, $40 higher on gold and $3 to $4 higher on silver. You're already seeing the cash markets, the jaws are starting to open between the cash markets and the paper markets. And what's happening is you're having buying on LBMA, buying on COMEX, getting metal delivered out, and it's being shipped to Shanghai. It's an arbitrage. So I think you're already seeing that. And going one step further, and this is the big step. There's questioning now of the amount of gold held by China. I think they say they own like 2,700 tons or 2,900 tons or something like that. And I'm going to say it was like 5 or 6 years ago, on the back of a napkin between what had been, first off, remember that almost nothing gets exported. There's no gold that gets exported from China. They have production of roughly 400 tons per year. And if you look at the Shanghai imports, I mean, those have been, sky high, 1,000, 2,000 tons per year. So even if you look at just the 400 tons per year that is produced within China, I mean, over 10 years, that's 4,000 tons. And they've been doing this now since, there's been a concerted effort to produce gold in China since the early 2000s. So, is it 6,000, 8,000? On the back of it, I could have shown you where China had 25,000 tons already. So, they're probably 30, 35, 40,000 tons at this point. Once the BRICS currency does get released, and they have said that gold is going to be one of the components that backs the currency. Now, one of the questions is how much, how big of a percentage? Is it 20%? Is it 40%? I don't think it'll be more than 40%. But then you got to do the math, because if the BRICS currency is what settles trade worldwide, there's got to be a lot of currency. And that means there's got to be either a lot of gold, or the price of gold has got to be a lot higher for the gold that's actually backing the currency. So long story short, I do think that for their own benefit, if you're sitting on 30, 40,000 tons of gold, wouldn't you want to revalue that higher at some point? So yeah, I think absolutely China is in their best interest going to revalue gold higher. And one of the things that does is it makes it really hard for anyone to catch up to their hoard, because it's so costly to purchase each ounce. So, if they revalued it to pick a number, 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, whatever, it would make it really difficult for nations that didn't have gold but want gold to catch up in the game.
Yeah, that's been one of the mysterious things about the last couple of decades here with low gold prices and this shift of physical gold from west to east, is how that benefits the West. If it's the Western bullion banks that are diligently holding the price down on the COMEX, as Ted Butler and Ed Steer and many others analysts have surmised, then it seems like that just plays right into the hand of strengthening China, Russia, etc. Your thoughts on that? It's like everything else we've saying is too stupid to be stupid, but is there anything else that you can add to that?
Oh, yeah. Let me clarify that, because Andy's been running around saying that my quote is too stupid to be stupid. It's not actually my quote. My quote is, it's too stupid to not be the plan. That's what I originally said back in 2007. It's a plan. There's no question in my mind that it is a plan, and the powers that be all over the world understand that if they want to implement their policies, their way of life, they have to. The U.S. can no longer be an impediment. And how do you do that? You collapse the U.S. So, everything that's being done and everything that's been done, and I started in 2007 writing that it's obviously a plan to torpedo the United States, because the policies that they were putting in place all along have been too stupid to not be the actual plan.
Back on what people can do if things go badly financially, more than they already have. What we're seeing already is, whether you call it slow motion or not slow motion, a collapse of the purchasing power of the dollar. Even ordinary people on the streets would have to acknowledge that a buck ain't what it used to be, and it won't go as far as it used to, etc. So that means their savings, their earnings, and their retirements are all threatened. And how we protect ourselves from that. There's a question here from Sensiok, who says, if gold and silver become illegal or confiscated, with whom will you barter? Criminals?
First off, I don't think silver will become illegal. And I certainly don't think that pre-1933 gold, because those are collectibles, they're legally considered collectibles, I don't think those would be confiscated. But what that'll do, if they do make it illegal, it turns it into a black market. And what happens to the value of something once it trades in the black market? It goes to the moon, simply because when you tell a human that they can't have something, they want it even more. So, they can do that, but then they're basically revaluing gold versus the dollar versus every currency on the planet. That would be a way to revalue metals much, much, much higher.
The analogy that comes to mind is back when Obama was president, it was almost impossible to get modern hunting rifles and ammo, that sort of thing. And he actually was quoted saying, "I'm the best friend the gun industry's ever had." And then they had the Trump slump of the firearms industry because they were easy to get, and therefore they became plentiful and the prices went down, etc.
Yeah, and another example of that, Don, back in, I think it was 2009, and spot gold was roughly $1,000 an ounce. And there was a pretty big fear nationwide that Obama was going to go through with a gold confiscation. And remember, gold at the time was about $1,000 an ounce. And you were able, if you had them, you were able to liquidate MS-63 Liberties. That's just, one of various grades, but an MS-63 Liberty was bid by dealers. They would pay you a clear $1,800 for the coin. And that's because there was fear of confiscation. So, and of course, at that point, the best thing to do would have been to swap that out into Eagles, and you ended up with what? 30, 40, 50% more Eagles, more ounces, so to speak. So, I mean, that's just an example right there where if you tell humans that they're not going to be able to have something, they will immediately shift gears, change direction. And that's what they did. I mean, the pre-1933 gold got pushed to the moon. And interestingly, right now, an MS-63 Liberty, you're probably talking, 5% higher than an Eagle. So, I mean, my question is, if you're going to buy, why not step up? Why not go the next step? Everybody has in their mind, I don't want to do numismatics because I'm getting ripped off. Well, currently where pricing is, you're not getting ripped off.
Yeah, we had an expert on about numismatic coins, and he was trying to make the case against numismatic coins at the time, showing charts that he says the premium always disappears. And so I kind of turned around for him and I said, well, doesn't that mean that when the premium has disappeared, that would be an opportunity from a contrarian standpoint? And he kind of paused for a minute. He said, yeah, I guess you're right. So, Bill, if people want to follow your work, because you do publish videos and do some writing periodically, where should they follow you right now?
You can go to my website, just billholter.com. There is a contact button, or if you want to contact me directly, my business email is bholter@proton.me.
And folks, if you don't want to miss a single episode with Bill or with any of our guests, make sure that you're subscribed to our free mailing list at libertyandfinance.com. That's spelled out, all one word, libertyandfinance.com. Just put your email address, click submit, make sure you confirm. On the confirming email, you'll get one email in your inbox per day with our latest interviews, including all of those with Bill and all of our other guests, and you won't miss a single thing. And so, Bill, just always appreciate you being such a good sport on fielding random questions that I throw at you from viewers. There are certainly more than we can get to today, but just thanks for spending this time with us here on Liberty and Finance.
My pleasure, Donegan.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the Miles Franklin Weekly Specials for June 24th through July 1st, 2024, while supplies last. First, we feature Ital Preziosi silver kilo bars at just $1.79 over spot per ounce. We also have a highly limited supply of 1/10 ounce Platinum Britannia at $59 over melt. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.